Now you're looking for trouble condition.
Hello and welcome to another episode of American Werewolves, where we talk all things horror. I am your co-host Brandon,
and I am Jerry.
And we are a little late on this one, but we are here to talk about a small little horror film that came out last year titled When Evil Lurks. Released in 2003, the plot goes as this. In a remote village, two brothers find a demon-infected man just about to give birth to evil itself. They decide to get rid of the body, only to end up unintentionally spreading chaos. This film was written and directed by Damien Rugna, who he previously did this film called Terrified that came out in 2017. I have never heard of it or seen it, but I hear good things about it. And I mean, I'm definitely interested in checking out this man's filmography after watching this one, because regardless of how you may feel about this film after watching it, it is one of the most fucked up horror movies I have seen in a while. This is an Argentinian horror film, which means they don't give a shit about how sensitive you are to terrifying things. It breaks a lot of the rules in horror that at least Hollywood itself, American horror films, doesn't like touching. If you do not like kills that involve animals or children or anyone for that matter, anything of the above, like just super graphic kills, brutal violence, do not watch this movie. It is so messed up. It does not shy away. It shows all the nasty bits that I was not expecting, and I had not seen a trailer. I hadn't really heard much about this film, except for that it was number one on a lot of people's top horror lists, like of last year, which is interesting to say the least. I believe this is the best horror movie to come out in 2023? No, I think it's up there for me. To me, I still really liked Talk to Me. I still really liked Evil Dead Rises. Those movies I've watched over and over again. This is one that I probably won't watch again, just because of how just disturbing and bleak this film is, and how it gets towards just throughout the runtime. This is a spoiler-filled review also, so if you have not seen the film, I'd recommend watching it, then coming back, but also be cautious if you do. If you do not care, stick around and enjoy what we got to say. Now, you had never heard of this film either before I had talked about it. You didn't see it on any lists, or, didn't hear about one little thing?
No.
Okay. So Did you watch anything or read anything about it before doing so, or did you just walk in blind?
No, I went in completely blind.
Okay. So yeah, you had no expectations. You didn't even know it was a supernatural possession story.
No, I mean, I figured When Evil Lurks sounds like a possession film title, so I figured it would be something like that as much. And then I was expecting it to be pretty out there, because you texted me after watching it. You were like, this movie is fucked up.
Yeah.
So I kind of went in expecting to see some horrible shit.
Yeah. And we got that. We got that in a few scenes. Thankfully also those scenes, they're not used a lot. They're used sparingly throughout, but there's always something happening in this movie one way or the other, except for maybe towards the middle. I will say for me, that's where the film kind of started to drag a bit. It's when they get to the lady's house. But essentially for the first half of the film, you have these two brothers, Pedro and Jimmy, who, by the way, Pedro, the main guy, he looks a lot like Hugh Jackman. Like, I couldn't help but think Old Man Logan. It's just the beard and the hairstyle, really, more than anything. But I couldn't help but make the comparison. Also, with the comparison of the vibe for this movie, it feels very much like The Last of Us, like a very post-apocalyptic setting, without it really being. It's not really a post-apocalyptic story, but it is a very strange world where there's demon possession in this world is kind of like a well-known thing for the most part, but they kind of treat it almost like an infection here. We see in the beginning, the brothers, they find this body torn up and they find out that it was supposed to be someone known as a cleaner who was supposed to perform an exorcism on this family's son who has been possessed for like a year. And, you know, the lady had told the police, and the brothers go and confront the police about this, saying the cleaner, the exorcist, the man that was supposed to perform the exorcism, he was brutally murdered. And, you know, the government themselves, the police, they're saying, you know, stay away from anything possession related, you know, let professionals take care of it. And like, you know, most things with the government, they take fucking forever to get to the point, to get to doing the job. And, you know, these brothers, mainly the main one, I will say this, like the people on this farm, they're very desperate, and I'm not gonna lie, they're kind of stupid. And they try to think they're just gonna be able to get rid of this demon, and they can't, because half the time they can't even follow the rules. Like there's a lot of rules that go along in this world with you know, one, you can't use a gun to kill it because it'll just spread it instantly. You know, like I said, they treat it like an infection. 2, you can't use electricity, and you need like a certain device. You can't speak its name out loud. There's so many rules to follow. I can barely even remember, but then it's hard for these main characters because they break them as much as they can half the time. I will say for the pros, more pros, that I really did enjoy the lore. For the most part, I wish there was more explanation with the lore because they really don't explain a lot to you half the time. You can piece together things here and there the more characters talk, but at the end of the day, it's still fairly vague. Yeah. You know, like for example, you were bringing this up earlier. It had to do with the device, the specific device that cleaners use to get rid of demons and, you know, stop possession from spreading. And this lady, she does give like a bit of an explanation, but she never really explains exactly how it works or why you can't just use a knife. Like I understand maybe not using a gun and stuff like that, but yeah, that stuff was vague.
That was my main issue, is that this movie leaves a lot unexplained. I'm gonna go into this saying I didn't think it was a bad movie.
No, not at all.
There was just a lot that they don't really explain, so I was kind of going through it like, what the fuck is happening? They don't explain any of the rules. Some rules you can kind of, you know, decipher for yourself, like don't say evil's name. You know, you're not supposed to say Voldemort's name. I get that. But
the only explanation of rules you get is from their grandmother, who like breaks them down to the son in the back of the car, kind of almost implying that this is not like the first time this has happened. Granted, she doesn't believe it herself half the time. Like she doesn't believe the boys have seen her running or anything, you know, she doesn't really know what's going on, but she's aware enough to where she knows what these rules are, like to stop this thing or to avoid it.
And it's like, why can't we use electricity? Why does using a gun, you know, condemn you? Why is this town so okay with this shit? Like why is it so
it seems
common?
Like it just seems like it's just another thing with this town. Like this is just a parallel reality from ours where demon possession is just like a virus, you know. I kind of, in a strange way, I almost saw a lot of parallels of this with COVID, the pandemic. I mean, granted, this pandemic is still kind of fresh on everyone's mind, so I can see that influencing the film, if anything. But that was like maybe one way I saw of looking at it, how people handle a pandemic, or how they, you know, this demon possession stuff to them is just almost like another thing, like people don't take seriously anymore. That was my view of it. I don't know if that was what Damien Rugna was actually going for or not, but
I also wish we kind of just got deeper into the characters themselves, because you don't know anything about them. Like when he's arguing with his ex-wife, you know, she mentions something like the restraining order. That's kind of fucking important to know about your protagonist. Like, why is there a restraining order?
I really enjoyed the fact that we get info like that more organically, rather than just like, we got to stop for a second to explain what happened. I mean,
They never
I
fucking
prefer
explain
that way.
it.
No, I'm saying I like the fact that it just came up organically and we didn't stop to get an explanation. That's what I enjoyed.
So I'm cool with getting information organically, but they don't dive further into it. Like that feels like something kind of important to know, just to
Yes
get
and no.
insight of your protagonist a little more, because like I don't fucking know who this guy is, like,
Yeah. Well,
because
I mean, off the bat, let me question: do you even like this guy? Do you
not
think he's a
really.
good character?
I didn't.
Because I don't either. Because I think, well, I don't like him for one big reason.
What's your
He's a
reason?
fucking idiot. He's an idiot. He makes terrible decisions throughout, especially towards the end.
Oh yeah, he is.
So
Kind of
I
a fucking
didn't like him
dumbass.
enough. I just kind of cared about, the only thing I knew is that he loves his brother, he cared about his family and his kids mainly, and that's about it. But I understood off the bat he's a selfish dude. He doesn't care. He clearly has a troubled past. We got all that information through the, explanation up with the argument, and I felt like that's all I needed to know about this guy because I get like this. This movie is very fast paced. These characters are always on the move. They don't have time to slow down and talk about their own bullshit. They're just thinking of surviving at this moment. So I felt like getting, while the information, it would have been nice to know more. I felt like it wouldn't have changed much on how I viewed this guy to begin with because I just found him to be stupid, especially at the halfway point.
Maybe not, but I also think it's important to break up the action with moments like that. Kind of having these rising, moments and then falling, like, you're going super fast paced with action, you take a little break,
Yeah.
Have a little breather, and then you go back down with more action, but it's just like constant, just like action.
I get it.
And
they're
for
fair
me,
enough too.
yeah, for me, it was just like they were just always fucking stressing about it. and I get it. Yeah, there's a fucking demon possessing your town, but it was just constant, like them running around with, like chickens without their heads. And I was just like, what is going on right now?
Yeah.
And I didn't. I think the lack, and again, the lack of explanation on the rules also, I didn't see where the movie was supposed to go. Like, were they trying to eradicate this possession in its entirety? What
they were trying to stop it from spreading, and then then they were just trying to get away from it because they felt like it was already spread, so they're just trying to be on the move,
right?
And then they realized there's no getting away from it. You have to kill the source. That's why they had to find Uriel in the school, which I don't know how he got there. I'm guessing those kids picked him up and threw him in there. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But let's get into kills. Now, I don't know about you, but this one behind me was pretty messed up with the wife and the axe, the pregnant wife.
Okay.
I feel like I already know what you're gonna say.
I understand why she did what she did. She was scared. Why didn't she just pick up the fucking gun and off herself rather than take an axe into her skull?
She wasn't scared. She was, in my view, she was possessed.
Do you think she was possessed instantly?
Yeah, because the way the possessions work throughout makes me believe she was instantly possessed. That it spread so fast around them.
Okay, see, I took it as she knew he condemned them, and she was like, fuck, and like, I'm so scared of what's gonna happen. The best option is just to kill ourselves and kind of just spare us from whatever evil is about to come and fuck us up. Like, that's how I took that scene. But maybe she was possessed. Maybe you're right.
No, I believe it was, because at first I watched it and I was like, what the hell was that? Why did she kill him like that? Why didn't she just tell him, grab the gun, and then do herself a little more favorably than that? Mm-hmm. But she just went for an instant. And as soon as the other possession started taking place, I was like, okay, I think... no, that's definitely a possession. They were both condemned immediately. She was even crying about it, saying, if you do this, you'll condemn us quick. Yeah. Like, So yeah, that one was particularly brutal, but I think the one that got me the most, the one that shocked me the most, because I think it was in the trailer, but I didn't see the trailer, and it's that dog.
That was fucking
They
wild.
they focus on that dog
I knew
for
it
a
was gonna
long
happen
time,
too. Yeah.
and I was like, oh shit, don't do it. I kept saying movie, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, and it did it, and it did not show, it did not shy away, and then yeah, there's the scene where the dog just grabs this little girl's head and starts dragging her around like a rag doll, and her little brother's just watching in complete shock while the family in the back is just arguing, not even aware of what's happening for like a solid minute.
It was like watching Gizmo play with one of his toys. Like it was. That's exactly how he like chews his toys. He just like
just
death rolls them.
Oh my.
Yeah, it was brutal. That shit would not fly in a theater in America. Like
No, there would be people with pitchforks outside Hollywood being like, "How could you do that?"
yeah, it was
like
crazy.
you know, it was already a lot for Georgie and it to get his arm ripped off and it dragged into a sewer. To see that and then to like drag her around,
That was
have this family screaming bloody murdered,
yeah,
is insane. And what was scarier was the fact that, like, you know, the stepdad hunts down for his daughter, kills the dog that took her outside, and then the daughter's just okay. No cuts, no scratches, nothing. And that's when I was like, that's not her. That is a demon. That is not her. She's towing that little girl shit where she's telling her mom about dead people coming or people gonna die and stuff like that. And the mom is just such an asshole. She's like, I don't care. Like, fuck what my husband said. Like, I'm just glad my daughter's okay. And the mother dies instantly. It was just a chaotic chain of events. That whole sequence.
that was the best
Honestly,
part of the movie.
I loved it. It was insane, but I loved it. But you know, after that, that's when the pacing slows down a bit for me.
Yeah,
And they get to this friend of Jimmy's who was also used to be a cleaner. She has the same equipment as the cleaner from the beginning of the film that was ripped apart. She explains a little bit about that, and she even points out that one of Pedro's son, Jair, I believe, who now this is part of the movie's lore, but apparently in this film, when a demon, you know, Pedro's son has autism, and pretty advanced autism, and then when the demon tries possessing him, you know, the cleaner points out that his hands are doing some weird, you know, in some position, because apparently in this film, when a demon tries to possess someone on the spectrum, they have trouble, you know, it takes them a while to figure out how their brain works so that way they can take over their body completely, which was weird. Apparently, like, autism is kryptonite to demon possession for a little bit. Yeah.
That was the most explanation we got on anything in the whole film.
That was the most interesting bit of lore, honestly.
Yeah,
I
it was the
like,
only fucking lore we got. Like,
yeah. I mean, we got a bit more. We know there's cleaners around. We know the government doesn't really care about possessions, take them seriously. There's, you know, if you're infected, you're labeled as this thing known as a rotten. But that's pretty much, and then you know that children love evil and evil loves children. Other than that, you don't really know anything else. But then we get another crazy sequence where everyone's trying to sleep that night when they're at the cleaner's house, and then the mother, who is not the mother, she is a demon possessed, kidnaps one of the kids, jumps out of the window and runs off with the kid. And then when Jimmy, the uncle, goes to find his nephew,
Jimmy or Jamie?
Jimmy. I guess in the, I think it's just in Spanish it's called Jamie, but I believe
my subtitle said Jamie. That's
yeah, I have it under here as Jimmy.
Oh, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I believe they called him Jamie a few times.
Okay.
But yeah, Jimmy's going out to find his nephew and sees that the woman is just digging her hand inside her son's head, like
fucking Doom popcorn bucket.
A popcorn bucket, like he's the Doom popcorn bucket or something. Just like digging in there, grabbing his brain and stuff, and eating it, chewing it. It was so disgusting. Oh my god! I was like, they're doing this like nothing. And then of course Jimmy gets upset and was like, I'm gonna run you over, and he pins her against the tree. Of course, she's still alive because they're They just can't die. You can't kill them normally. And she's just constantly taunting him and all this stuff. Which, did I read this right? Did they sleep together? Because I think she alluded to that.
So that's another thing. Like, we don't get
That was-
fucking explanations on anything because she says you told me you loved me.
Yeah.
And
I could only assume the demons are telling the truth to like mess with them. So that's how we get our lore about these characters. We get little bits and info from there.
And then that's it. Like, we don't see him for the rest of the film until like the very last scene. Like, we don't get any explanation what she meant. She sure could it have been I love you as you're my sister-in-law, but
clearly not.
Yeah, for a demon to use that as like bait against somebody, that's some pretty heavy shit.
Yeah. It's yeah, they don't really explain too much, but I did find that bit interesting. Now, we also have the sequence where they realize they have to get urinal and they have to go, or Urel? Did I say urinal? Fucking A. They got to get the urinal. No, they got to go for Uriel and get to the school. I forgot exactly how they know where it is. But
they're
they
just
get
driving and they're like, he's like, I don't even know where to look for him. And then she's like, and there's just a sign that says school. And she's like, he's in there. And he's like, what? And she's like, evil loves children and children love evil. And it's kind of just like, okay, sure. Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
And yeah, apparently her hunch was good. I mean, she's the ex-cleaner, so I don't know. Maybe she's got a knack for that shit.
She knows more than I do.
But all right. So they get to the school. They discover a bunch of creepy children in there, very children of the corn, and they do a lot of creepy children shit. And then we get to one of the most frustrating scenes in the film for me. Now, they're setting up this device. They see this guy stuck in the bottom, very heavy set rotten. He's very close to giving birth to evil. And he tries pulling him out. Children are taunting him, saying, like, no, get the axe inside. It'll be easier. And then the cleaner is telling him the whole time, no, don't do it. They're lying. She's literally going on for 5 minutes. Now, he's listened to her on everything up to this point and has just gone with it. But I guess he was so taunted and so tired of the children's shit that he fell for their lie. He goes to the other room, realizes there's nothing there. And then he gets the door locked. He gets locked out of the gym where they're very close to like ending evil. And he looks and he sees the children have got the cleaner. They just smash a hammer over their head and she's just dead. She's killed. She's bludgeoned instantly. The device she was set up is broken. He manages to get in, but it's too late. There's no way to reset up the device because he doesn't know what he's doing. And the demon Uriel taunts him. He grabs a piece of the device, bangs his head, smashes it. And evil is born into this child. It just shows that they failed. He does like the mark on the guy's head, and then him and the children walk off into the sunset, and that's it. Evil simply won. It's only a matter of time before chaos spreads all around. They get, the brothers go back to the house, accepting that they just lost. And, and then this dude learns that his autistic son ate grandma. He was fully possessed by the demon later on, and he starts digging into the kid's mouth because he sees he's choking on something, and he takes out pieces of her hair, some flesh, and the family necklace that she was wearing. And it just ends with him screaming into the sky, just realizing he messed up big. He lost pretty much most of his family, only has his brother and his one son, and that's where the movie ends. It ends on a very bleak and bitter note. That is when evil lurks. Now, my thoughts on this movie are very complicated because while there's a lot of things I love about it, there's a lot of things I find frustrating. Like, I wish they explained more of the lore. I wish there was a little more depth to the main character. At least there wasn't really much for me to grab on with that guy, and it kind of made me not care as much about his journey. Granted, I found the world very interesting to the point where I just wanted to see how it was going to keep developing and where it was going to go. And also, you got a fair amount of really brutal kills spread throughout, very shocking and brutal kills spread throughout, where it was, entertaining enough to keep me invested and keep me watching. But I didn't feel like it wrapped up as well as it could have. I'm going to be honest.
He also doesn't really have like an emotional journey. Like he's kind of just the same character from the beginning to the end.
Yeah. That was the thing I was talking about with my mom. Actually, she watched the movie with me, and that was the same thing we agreed on. Like, these characters, they didn't learn anything.
Yeah.
They just were the same throughout. Granted, maybe the director wasn't going for that, but who knows? I mean, for me, I'm always more interested in a character's journey rather than the world itself. But I still found the world very interesting. I just wish that it nailed the characters a little more. Maybe there would have been a better impact on that ending.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it kind of just felt like it ended. It kind of felt lifeless. I felt like they could have executed that a lot better.
Yeah.
But now, we discussed it earlier. Was this the best and scariest movie of 2023? No, just the most messed up. Definitely the most messed up, I think. If I saw it last year, it probably would have been on my top 5, maybe. But it's definitely not my favorite. I don't think I can watch this movie again, but I'm definitely going to be recommending it to anyone, any horror fan that just loves horror, loves these films that can push the envelope enough where they can be like, holy crap, that's so fucked up, and still enjoy it and have a good time with it. For me, I would say I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10, personally. I thought it was fun enough. I thought it was crazy. I had a strange good time watching this very bleak and down horror movie, but it's not, it just upsets me because it has so much potential to really push it and be right there, but it just couldn't get there for me. It does lose steam by the last half.
I would give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
It feels very just stagnant throughout the whole film. Like I said, there's no moments of like relaxation and then like amping it back up. There's no character depth, or characters aren't learning from previous actions. Everything just feels very flat. I agree with what you said. It is still an interesting world, and it's interesting enough to kind of carry what the movie is lacking in terms of character development.
No.
But the pacing of the movie and I don't want to say pacing, but just the way that characters are written and how they're kind of just the same throughout the whole thing does make it feel very stagnant for me. It's very like, I don't say two-dimensional, but it just falls flat for me a little bit.
I get it.
There could have been some things added in there to, at least for me, to make it a little more interesting.
I get you. No, but I mean, yeah, it's like we said, not a bad movie, but definitely one that, I mean, I'll say it. It was a little overhyped, but I definitely see a lot of where the hype is coming from, and I agree with a lot of the positives people have been saying about it, but just not the best of the best. I've seen far crazier, just in general, especially when it comes to Spanish horror movies. They really love messing you up, and they really say like, "Fuck them kids," like they don't care over there, I guess.
Watch it just for the dog scene. That shit's fucking wild.
God, yeah. I was like, that tension building. That's another thing. The tension in this film was awesome. They really knew how to build upon it.
It's very
in a lot of those sequences.
It's very like, I knew the dog attack was going to happen because they kept cutting to the dog and the little girl.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that his son was possessed because they kept cutting to the son just staring out the window in the car, and he kept like shouting, and he's like, oh, he's shouting because he doesn't have his apple ice cream, and I was like, I don't think that's why he's
and I'm like, I don't think it's the ice cream, dude. I had the same feeling after a while because he kept complaining about it, and I'm like, dude, nah, I don't think that's it. I don't think that's him. I think that's a demon. But But other than that, yeah, that's When Evil Lurks. Very, very, very entertaining horror movie. If you have Shudder, if you have Hulu or AMC, definitely check it out. I believe it's definitely worth watching. But that is going to do it for my thoughts on this film. If you enjoyed this review, leave a comment down below and let us know what you thought. Did you enjoy this movie? Did you hate it? Was it your favorite of 2023? And if not, what was your favorite of 2023 in horror movies? If give us a follow on the Instagram at American Werewolves, on TikTok at American Werewolves. Like and subscribe. Once again, I am Brandon. Stay spooky.